Hello everyone and welcome to my CS24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Curse of Oak Island. Gold is recovered at the Money Pit dig, but there's also a major setback. On last night's episode of The Curse of Oak Island, the team uncovered more gold from the spoils from the Money Pit excavation. However, there was also a significant and unexpected setback. Longtime viewers of the show will be used to a fair few failed digs and crushing disappointments at the Money Pit, and unfortunately last night, there was a bit more of that. But there was also some cause for hope too. The Oak Island team has once again found some gold in the Money Pit area, which is getting to be a bit of a habit. But first, the team had to endure some disappointment. It starts to go wrong at the Oak Island Money Pit. The guys had been using a 10-foot steel caisson shaft to dig the TF1 hole at the Money Pit. They thought TF1 was their best bet because earlier in the season, they had recovered metal with traces of gold on it in this area, and samples of underground water had also revealed the presence of gold and silver. Things seemed to be going well. The hammer grab was pulling up plenty of wood, indicating that there were shafts and tunnels buried underneath. The team began to suspect that they were following in the footsteps of previous excavations. There was evidence they were covering the same ground as digs from 1861 and 1909, which gave the guys hope that they were on the right track. Finally, when the hammer grab began hitting off something that was too heavy to lift, they wondered if they had settled just above the chapel vault. This was at a depth of approximately 150 feet, which the guys thought would be a perfect depth for a treasure vault encased in concrete. Sadly, the crew soon determined they weren't hitting up against a vault. Instead, it was most likely bedrock, which meant game over. The hole was a dead end. There was still hope on Oak Island as gold was discovered. But all was not entirely lost as Steve Guptill turned up with a collection of artifacts recovered from the spoils of TF1. He had a fairly large number of metal objects found at a depth between 110 and 130 feet, and Marty Lagina wasted no time in running them through the XRF machine. Lo and behold, two of the objects contained gold. Marty can often be quite pessimistic, but he was full of positive energy last night. Speaking of the gold pieces, he argued the pieces showed they may be getting close to the source of the gold. He explained that the artifacts could be detritus from a real treasure trove about a foot away. The final task for last night's episode was to convene a meeting of the Fellowship of the Dig in the War Room to decide what to do next. Oak Island historian Charles Barkhouse had a clear and succinct plan. He believed that the evidence showed they were super close to the shaft collapse of 1861, but that they had dug a little bit too far west. So, Charles's solution was simple. They just need to place the next caisson in the ground a little bit further to the east, specifically over a cluster of old boreholes, known as the C1 cluster. It was here that they previously uncovered old wood from the 15th century and metal containing gold. Don't forget, if this doesn't work, they still have two other caisson shafts in reserve. So, still plenty of opportunity for success. The August sun cast a molten glow over the rolling greenery of Oak Island, but the real heat was radiating from the Money Pit dig site. The whirring of machinery echoed through the early morning air, mingling with the rhythmic thud of excavator buckets hitting ancient earth. For Rick and Marty Lagina, this was the moment they had been chasing for more than a decade, a moment steeped in both promise and peril. It was Tom Nolan who spotted it first. His keen eyes, honed by years of working the island alongside his father, caught the faint glint buried among the damp layers of soil pulled up from deep below. "Rick," he called, holding up the muddy clump for all to see. The sunlight hit it just right, and there was no mistaking it. A sliver of gold, unmistakably metallic, glimmered like a beacon from history itself. Rick stepped forward, his heart thudding in his chest. "Get that cleaned off," he said, voice taut with excitement. When the artifact was rinsed and revealed, the team gathered in breathless awe. It was a curved fragment, possibly part of a decorative object, the edges ornately worked. The weight in Rick's palm was more than just the metal. It was the weight of centuries of speculation, legends, and obsession. "It's not just gold," said Dr. Ian Spooner, leaning in for a closer look. "This is worked material. Someone crafted this. We could be looking at a fragment of a treasure object." His words seemed to ignite the air. Even the machinery operators paused, watching the small huddle around the gleaming find. Marty, ever the pragmatist, tried to temper the excitement. "One piece doesn't prove we've hit the main deposit," he reminded everyone. "We need context, where exactly this came from in the stratigraphy." But even as he spoke, his eyes betrayed a spark of triumph. They had gold in hand, physical, tangible proof that the money pit still had secrets to yield. The find fueled the team's energy like never before. Survey stakes were adjusted, and orders were barked to keep the excavation steady and precise. The remote camera was lowered into the borehole, its feed showing a world of darkness punctuated by glints of debris and sediment sliding past. Somewhere below, the rest of the gold, perhaps chests of it, might still be waiting. By midday, they had pulled up several more intriguing artifacts. Fragments of wood with hand-forged nails, a section of what might be a chest hinge, and another tiny speck of gold embedded in sediment. The pattern was undeniable. They were brushing up against a deposit of extraordinary significance. But on Oak Island, joy is often followed by a shadow. It started with a deep, resonant groan from the excavation shaft. The crew froze, every instinct attuned to the danger. The excavator halted mid-swing. Dust drifted from the shaft edges. Then, with a shudder that rattled the scaffolding, a section of the cribbing gave way. The ground shifted, pulling in one of the monitoring cables with a sickening snap. "Get back!" Marty shouted, waving the crew away from the lip of the pit. A plume of mud-laced water erupted upward, spraying the workers. When it settled, the bottom half of the shaft was flooded, the brown water churning like a stirred cauldron. The pumps roared to life, but the water level refused to drop. It was the island's oldest trick, the mysterious flood tunnels, long suspected of being engineered by whoever hid the treasure centuries ago. Rick's face was drawn tight as he watched the pumps battle in vain. "We've hit a connection to one of the tunnels," he said grimly. "They built this to keep us out, and it's still working." The setback was a punch to the gut. Every minute the water rose, the artifacts and possible treasure below became more difficult and dangerous to recover. Ian Spooner worried aloud about contamination. "If we can't isolate the source of the flooding, any dating or material analysis will be compromised," he warned.